Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results, a weekly live show where I talk to an expert in the subject of mindset in a variety of fields so you can change your mindset and ultimately get the amazing results in your life that you want. I am so glad today to be joined by Jackie Bailey. Welcome.
Hi.
If you haven't met me before, my name's Leah Fink. I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive, and I help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. So if you ever want to chat about that, I'm always happy to connect. But I think you will be very excited, as I am today, to be able to talk to Jackie. If you have any questions as we're going through our comments, please feel free to put them in the comment box. Even if you are not watching this live, please feel free to add those comments and we can make sure to get back to you later. You won't want to miss out on this. So diving right in, Jackie, to start off, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a conversation coach, how you got to this place?
Yeah, thank you. As you can tell, I enjoy talking, so I don't mind talking about myself at all. How I got myself into the conversation coach title. Well, it was quite a journey because I was an abused child. I'm a survivor of childhood abuse, and I didn't have a voice. It was actually taken away from me. And then there was a time in my life when I had to break the silence, use my voice to save the life of another potential victim. And from that point on, I realized that I had something valuable to say and something worth hearing to say. And it was in 2015 when I competed in the international speech contest where the winner is crowned the world champion of public speaking. And I made it all the way to the semifinals using my voice and sharing a message. And after that event, I began realizing how important it was for children specifically to have the skills of public speaking. So I began teaching public speaking courses and empowering the voices of children. So how
Yeah.
people know me as the conversation coach for kids.
I mean, it's such a powerful story to hear that, to hear, the place you started from to the place you were able to get to, and especially now that you get to inspire, young people to not go through, hopefully that place, not feel powerless and voiceless. That's hugely powerful. So I absolutely love your work. Such a cool thing to have gotten here now. So
Yeah.
just to let our audience know too, you don't have to go through quite that much with Jackie's work to get to an amazing place where you can have a voice.
Right.
So when you do meet with people for the first time and they're talking about being voiceless or feeling in that powerless space, how do you start? How do you start helping them move away from that?
Well, it's a little different for kids versus adults. And let me just start with the kids for a minute because during the pandemic, they have all been voiceless. They have been silenced in a lot of ways, in that this routine that they'd always known throughout their life, to go to school, do your homework, to be involved in after school activities, to grow, to develop, all of that was taken away from them very quickly. And our kids, and this is what my students have told me, that they just felt lost. They felt disconnected. They felt unsure and uncertain about the future. And they were silenced even more because they didn't feel comfortable telling their parents about how they felt, because they knew their parents were stressed out and worried and concerned. So for the last year and a half or so, our children have legitimately been silenced. And when we start helping them overcome this shell shock, so to speak, and open up and come out of their shells and start conversing with each other, they gain confidence so quickly, and it opens up their mindset to all sorts of things that are more positive based, because now they feel empowered to actually speak up, and they don't feel uncomfortable in social situations. They can make friends easier, and they begin to understand who are their true friends. So it's an anti-bullying method at the same time. There's so many wonderful reasons simply just to teach your kids how to have conversations. And that's where we start. That's our foundation. When we work with parents or with adults, they don't, I mean, we could all use those conversation coaching skills. Let's face it, we could all be better and more confident at that.
Yeah.
But what I find most adults need is that they're really unsure about what they have to say in a bigger sense. Many of them are starting a business, or they're thinking about writing that book finally, or they want to do a podcast or some live streaming, something like you're doing right now, Leah, and they're just not sure what they would have to say, and they're not sure that they have anything of real value to offer an audience. Therefore, when I work with the adults, we delve deep to pull out the experiences they've had in life that now could be transformed into a story that is going to inspire whatever audience they choose to speak to. And it doesn't have to be verbally spoken. It could be a book, or it could be a blog, or whatever they want to do. It could be that it's going to be their branding of a new business. So once you recognize what you have to say, you understand your soul's purpose, you have some affirmation statements that are uniquely yours, unstoppable. And so that's how we work both sides of the coin there.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I have a particular soft spot for working with youth because, thinking of that voiceless time, that powerless time, if you can create that empowerment, then of course it's going to make it easier when you're an adult to feel that empowerment. Because I'm sure it sounds like some overlap of skills and things that help people, obviously being able to have their voices heard. I'd recommend highly, if you want to talk about working with kids, that you contact Jacky. But because this is a show mostly for adults, talking a little bit about that process of really finding, call it your heart's purpose. I forget your exact language, but how do you start people on that journey?
That's a great question. And I actually call it a soul's purpose or a soul's agenda. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to define it, and everybody says it in their own way, which is fine with me. The way that we start to delve down is we have a few exercises. Many people that I've worked with have said, gosh, this feels a little bit like therapy. And I think it might, because I am, as I said, I'm reaching down inside of you and I am trying to help you pull out of yourself some of your greatest moments. For instance, one of the first things I would ask you is to identify 3 of your greatest accomplishments. And men usually get right on this. I mean, they don't hesitate at all. Women have a little bit of a harder time thinking, what in the world have I accomplished? And it's a sad state of affairs. However, I say, don't think too hard about it. Whatever your soul wants you to remember, you'll remember, and it will come. And it's not like I'm asking for deep down stories with all the details at this point. I just want them to, from a 30,000 foot level, identify what are 3 things that I've done that are pretty amazing. And when I think of accomplishments, that would be a long-term goal. Perhaps you were the first in your family to go to college and you graduated, in 4 years or whatever, or in 8 years, whatever, but you completed it, right? That's an accomplishment. Many women have talked to me about their raising their children and how in a troubled world, that's an accomplishment to be able to do. Many people have talked about finding their one true love and having that connection to someone. So whatever your soul says, this is 3 of your greatest accomplishments. That's what I want you to focus on. And then the next question, after you've identified those 3, is, well, now list 3 moments of your greatest efficiency. This would be defined as short-term crisis moments when it wasn't planned, but all of a sudden, the drains are pumping dirty water out all over your place. And what are you going to do? What is the action that you take? Who are you going to call? Those types of things. And if you recall those situations, when you handled a crisis in, with a plume and grace, right? That's what we want you to think about. And we've all done it. And sometimes we go back to our younger years, but we all have those moments we can identify when we were in a crisis. We stayed calm, we had an appropriate mindset, and we were able to handle things well. After you've identified your accomplishments and your moments of efficiency, now I ask you to consider, where are the common rules, the common themes, the common characteristics, the common circumstances, the common people you might have been with that caused you to have those great outcomes. And it sounds easy, but when you can really start identifying what makes you successful, what has given you the greatest ability to be praised in your life, when have you felt accomplished, when have you felt acknowledged and appreciated for the things that you do, when we can delve down and see the commonalities there, now we start to consider, if I want to continue to have successful moments in my life, then these are the rules I must operate under. This is what's worked for me in the past. So this is likely where I need to be putting myself in the future to continue to have those successful moments. So that's really powerful on its own, because not only do you recognize that, but now you have maybe 6 stories, 6 experiences that could become stories that now could actually be a very inspiring message for an audience to hear, or part of a larger message for an audience to hear. After we've talked about all those good things, then you might suspect that we're going to go to the flip side. And now you're going to identify, I'm going to ask you to identify 3 of your greatest failures. This is where women go, oh, let me start writing those down. And the men go, It's so funny the way that we think differently. But identifying those failures, again, it's not necessarily that you failed or that you did something immensely wrong. It's just that you didn't meet the expectations you had in yourself for a long-term goal or situation. And identify those. And then the other flip side is those moments of crisis when you blew it, or you didn't take the right action, or you did no action at all, and whatever you did didn't work. By thinking about those, both sides of the coin there, and then finally considering, okay, what are those common rules, common themes, common characteristics or traits I have to portray during these moments? What rings true in each of these cases? Now you can identify where you're most likely to not have the success you want or that you're seeking for, because now there's some themes you've identified about your life. For me, when I did this exercise the first time and found it so powerful that I started using it, is that I realized that for me, all of the moments when I've been successful is because I was thinking about someone besides me. Every single time. Whenever I made a decision based on somebody else's need rather than my want, that was when I saw success. And converse to that is when I made decisions because me, I was important, it needed to be right for me, then that's almost every time when I fail. So that has always been an important lesson to me. And that's why it led me to do a lot of the things that I do, because I realized I can't just concentrate every day on improving myself. For me, a big part of my journey is to make sure that I'm empowering someone else every day. And that's when I feel my greatest success. So that's the first exercise I'd ask people to do.
That is really neat. I've done some similar exercises for my own purpose work, and the moment of efficiency in crisis was a new one, and I really like that idea, because it's not just, of course, how we are in the big picture of how we want to be when maybe we're regulated and happy, but also how you do react when things are stressful, when the world isn't perfect. So I love that idea. And it's making me think too of, because something we kind of had talked about originally was that piece of perspective. Do you think it also helps switch people's minds, that now they're looking at just even their life from a little bit of a different lens? Is that a big piece of it for a lot of people?
Oh, yeah, because when you can look back at experiences in life that maybe you've even forgotten,
Mm.
and you learn lessons from that, went, oh, you know what? Now, 20 years later, I can see why that was such an important episode for me. I can see why that was a pivotal point in my life that I'd never considered before. And now you start to have the perspective of every experience you've had, good and bad, has mattered. And there has been a reason for your growth in being involved in it. And again, this now, not only do you have 6 successful stories and you have 6 failure stories, now you've got 12 experiences that you can take in front of an audience and you can say, hey, you know what? These are some of the things that have happened to me, and this is what I've learned from them. And I'm going to tell you that today so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I did, or so you can do the same things I did and find success like I did. Those are the types of general messages that audiences love to listen to. They want to know that you've made some mistakes. You've got to show your vulnerability, and they're willing to accept that vulnerability. They're willing to accept your imperfections. And that's how they connect with you. And then you tell them, here are the ways that I have succeeded by combating those things. And this is what I've done. And that's the success stories that everybody wants to hear, right? But they first know that it wasn't always so successful. And so those are really the first couple of steps to beginning to understand your soul's purpose, is to look back at your life, see where it was all a nice laid out plan for you, and that everything that has contributed to your life has benefited you in one way or another. It's given you strengths, it's given you personality, it's given you humility, it's given you the ability to be compassionate for other people. All of those things are important, right? And after that initial exercise and you've identified all those things, the next big step is to create some pieces of advice you would give yourself based on everything now that you remember. And that simple piece of advice could be the title of your book. It could be your keynote speech, it could be the name of your podcast or your blog or whatever you're going to do. It could be the name of your business, because that's the advice you would give to yourself. Basically, that's the advice you'd give to the world as well. So it's a great start.
Okay, cool. And do you find, because I'm still kind of sitting with the sole purpose of yours that you shared, do you find that a lot of them do come from this or end up in this place of serving others? Like they're about how you're contributing to other people in the world? Or could you give some other examples of some things that come up? Because then I would like to move on to a bit more about this advice as well.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I have a wonderful friend named Ani Anderson, and she wrote a book called Finding Your Soul's Agenda. And one of the areas that I help my clients is in a particular part of her book. And she goes through other areas of memory that help you to break down your soul's purpose or your soul's agenda into a couple of words. And then with those words becoming your agenda, the most important component of that is using that gift to serve others. That once you know what your soul is put here to do for yourself, you also have to devise an affirmation statement that will remind you that you also have to serve others with this gift that you've been given. So that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. To me, that's really an alignment. I personally believe that generosity, or whatever you want to call it, that piece of giving back, is a core need for people. And you can see so many cases, especially with things like around mental health and people finding joy in their lives, that having that sense of how you're impacting other people is so important, that you're not just alone by yourself. You are in this relationship with others, helping them in some way. So I love that. And that sounds like a really neat book to check out as well.
Yeah. Well, I personally, I don't know what life would be like if you weren't making an impact on other people. I mean, we've got to have connections with people. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that our youngest students learn is to open up to friends. Many of them are shy, they're quiet, they aren't even quite sure how to make a friend, how to keep a friend, what does it mean to be a friend? And that sounds really elementary, but this is what I see from our students. And by helping them to understand their own power and how to use that power for good, now they recognize that they are significant. They have a significant part to play in this entire world that we're here together. And part of that significance is to make somebody else feel significant. And one of the very first homework assignments they have in our class is they've got to go have a conversation with someone they know well, like a parent or a grandparent. And the objective of that conversation is to find a story about that person that they didn't know before. So they've got to ask a series of follow-up questions. They're not supposed to cheat and just say, hey, tell me a story about yourself. I don't know, Mom.
Yeah.
Some of them have tried that, but the practice part of that is to really have a conversation with someone you're already comfortable with. I don't want them talking to strangers or anything like that. Discover the story. And they have to come back then and share the story with the rest of the class. And the real valuable part to that has been they learned that everybody has a story. That you see a stranger on the street who maybe isn't dressed very nice or looks a little bit ridiculous, and we can be apt to judge that person. But once we know there's a story that that person could share with me that could change my life, that could inspire a new beginning, that can help me see the world in a different way. If we understand that everybody has the power to do that for us, I mean, bullying would be a thing of the past. Suicide would be a thing of the past. Our children would just feel so empowered. They would never be voiceless again. I mean, it would really be incredible if we could understand the value that each of us has for each other.
That's a beautiful thing. I wish all children could start with. And I talk about empathy sometimes as a skill, right? People are born empathetic. I do truly believe that. And then life comes along and you maybe get hurt and
Right.
and all that. But what you're talking about is you can build skillfulness too in making those connections and non-judging and caring about people that you might have not naturally been drawn to and caring about. So no, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and you, at the beginning of the show, you talked about how most of your audience is adults, and that, maybe the conversation I have about the kids isn't going to necessarily be relevant to them. But here's what I would say about that. We all have a child in our life, whether it is an actual child, relative, friend, or it is the child inside of us that we have not yet connected fully with, that perhaps we have not yet fully forgiven. And when you can help that child to be more confident in a conversation with you, it will change the dynamic of your home. It will absolutely change the dynamic of your home, even if a child who lives there with you or lives nearby you is feeling more confident in their conversation and communication skills. It's just the truth. It's what I see all the time. So,
Yeah, changing your home, changing the world on a bigger level, and
yep.
that acknowledgement too, I think of the child that's inside us all. And realistically too, there might even be some people listening to this who said, these kids have a hard time sometimes reaching out and making friends and knowing what a friend is. I honestly do believe there's probably plenty of adults out there, young adults for sure, but adults who are going, well, how do I converse? Like, what is a friend? How do I be a good friend?
Right.
So whenever people talk about activities for kids or activities for adults, I think there's often a lot of overlap because we're all human. We're all trying to make those connections. So I certainly hope that people, if they're listening to this, are taking it for the child in themselves, the adult in themselves who still needs to learn these skills.
Well, there's a reason that public speaking is either the first or second top fear out of 10 for human beings, right? It's because at some point we've had bad experiences conversing with people, or we've been betrayed by someone, or we've been in a situation where we asked to speak out and we didn't know what to say, or we said something ridiculous or silly, and we got laughed at. Those experiences could be traumatic for us, and that's why that fear is so prevalent, in our society. So giving children an opportunity to have good experiences before those bad things set in, and have them be confident in conversing before they have a negative experience. Oh my gosh, can you imagine the changes that's going to make for all of us? These are our future leaders. When there's a leadership crisis in the world right now, and we need to train up our children to understand their own values so that they can be the leaders that we need them to be.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and hopefully this isn't too sidetracked, but probably more on the adult side, when you're talking with someone and you're saying, okay, well, you found this soul's purpose, which I'm guessing for a lot of people feels quite powerful, quite personal. Does that almost, though, sometimes increase the fear of public speaking? Because if you're putting that much of yourself out there, like a very deep, meaningful thing to you, and then someone does do something maybe a little bit cruel, or you get misunderstood or laughed at, is that scarier for people, or does that that confidence in self almost remove that vulnerability or change it?
That's a good question, but what I have found to actually be true is just knowing your soul's purpose doesn't necessarily mean you got to get out there and get on the rooftops and shout it out to the world. If that's what you want to do, if that's part of your purpose, yeah, do it. The way that it affects me, however, is a little more subtle, and it's personal for me. Knowing my soul's purpose, knowing that affirmation like statement that I can say to myself every day when I start feeling a little bit off track, or I get confused, maybe even a little bit downtrodden because things aren't going my way, I can repeat my soul's agenda that is uniquely mine. And that puts me back on track. It reminds me, okay, this is why you're here. And the reason that you're feeling lost right now is because you're not living up to that purpose. So get back on track, rethink what you're doing, and don't worry about all the other things that don't matter to your purpose right now. Yep. So that's what it does for me. It doesn't give me necessarily confidence to speak up, but it does give me the ability to stay authentic, to stay congruent, so that when I do speak, it's really me. It's not someone else that's talking who I'm trying to be. I'm living my purpose. And so therefore, when they hear me speak, it's always going to be the real me. So that's what it does for me.
Awesome. That definitely fits in. That's perfect. Just as we're kind of coming up to our time here, as a last piece, would you have any suggestions for people as if they do want to make that affirmation statement, like a way to structure it or a couple parts to put into it, anything like that?
Yes, I actually have a program that is called Take a Speaking Quantum Leap and Land Your Authentic Message with any audience. It is a group workshop. It's a 6-week workshop, once a week, 90 minutes once a week. And there's so much value in hearing what other people's experiences have been and sharing yours with them, and finding this connection, getting feedback from those around you. And we can help you then as this goes forward with several exercises. I mean, it also involves testing what you think is your core value right now. We might all say, yeah, I know what my core value is. Well, we're going to test that, because sometimes your core value might work against you. And if that's the case, it may not be authentically yours. There might be another one out there that you've left aside. And so we work through that. And then we start helping you to craft, what is your message? If you had 5 minutes to stand on the stage and talk to the world, what would you say? I asked that question to my 9-year-old grandson. He's 12 now, but he was 9 at the time. I asked him that, and I said, Sam, what would you do if you had 5 minutes to talk to the world? He goes, I'd tell them to get off their video games and go spend time with their family. And you know what? That is his unique message, and it's completely valid. And so we all, from the youngest child on the planet who can talk, we all deserve to be heard, because our message, our unique message is valid, and it's relevant, and the audience needs to hear it. So that's what our workshop does, is it helps you figure out what is that unique message story that you have to share that is going to inspire change in the world. And then we start helping you develop it, and you can share it any way you want to, whatever feels right to you. But many people finally feel confident to think about, you know what, maybe I want to be a speaker, or maybe I want to do a podcast and start getting my voice out there. So anytime you want to have your voice heard, that's a good thing.
And like you said, scary for many people. So it's really, really neat to hear about that transformation that they might have gone through to get to that. So I want to be aware of time. Unfortunately, we do have to start drawing this to a close. From what I understand, though, you do have a resource that really is about helping people reframe, make their life that little bit happier. Do you want to share about that?
I do. Thank you. It's called Positive Prime. This was developed by Kim Serafini and a group of the greatest minds on our planet. And it is a scientifically proven application. It's almost like a vision board on steroids, but it includes music, it includes positive affirmations, and it shows you images of people and places and animals and events that you can fill your mind with as if it's a future event happening right now. And it's created in such a way that when you see people, they're all smiling in a particular way, because it makes you want to smile, and your brain thinks that you're actually smiling. So you can raise your brain vibrations and energy and frequency simply in 3 minutes. 3 minutes of watching a Positive Prime session, you can get the benefit of a positive mindset for 6 to 8 hours. And that's been scientifically tested and proven. So on my website, speakfeedlead.org, there is a tab called Positive Prime Session. If you go there, you will see a session that I've created that I use with my students at the start of every class. We watch it for 3 minutes, and I have seen dramatic changes in their ability to be present and to be watchful and purposeful and very kind to each other. And they feel much more successful and ready and raring to go to speak out during our courses. And so go there. You'll see my Prime session, which you can watch as much as you want. But you'll also have access to a 10-day free trial to use the Positive Prime app and have access to hundreds, literally hundreds of other sessions about money, about positivity, about wealth, about mental illness, about teaching, about sales, whatever it is. You'll have access to those for 10 days free. And then it's $19 a month. It's nothing if you want to continue. But if you don't want to continue, you still get my session free forever. So go check that out, because it really will change your mindset. It's called Positive Prime, and it will prime your mind for positivity every day.
Amazing. I love it. It's a fantastic video. So I do definitely recommend people go check it out on Jackie's website. We'll make sure to put the link in the comments here so you guys can all see it and click it easily. I also highly encourage you. What we'll also put in the comments is the link for Jackie's charity, which is, do you want to share just really quickly about it? Because we're already a bit over time.
Yeah, speakfeedlead.org, same website. And if you go to the Make a Difference tab, you'll see ways that you can donate. It doesn't have to be money. It could be services. If you've got a talent in something and you want to share a couple of hours of your time with us to help us out, that'd be awesome. We also accept real estate and automobiles that we can resell and make money from. And we are right now working on a compilation book with our students. 40 of our students are going to be writing a chapter of a real compilation book that will be on Amazon and all the online places you can imagine. And they're going to get their voice heard in a different way than speaking, but it will be in a book. So you can donate to that as well to help us fund the $10,000 that will cost to publish a book for our kids. So all of those ways, we appreciate your help.
Amazing. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming in and being on today. I really hope that this helped everyone in the audience be able to think about how they would like to be heard a little bit more, how they could maybe be hearing themselves a little bit more. So thank you so much for being here today, Jackie.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much, Leah.
Excellent. Take care, everyone.